My name's Lisa. I use she, her pronouns, and I approach coding and sound kind of like through the lens of art and design. Primarily work as a designer and a teacher, and I teach at UIC. But I've been working with this little box. It's called the EYESY for, it's been a few years now. And so we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna learn how to use it, and then you're all gonna get to like play with some stuff. So let's just kind of like break this down a little bit and start with some definitions. So I know somebody's got a definition for what sound is in here. Anybody want to offer something?
I think of sound as energy, frequency, and vibration.
Ooh, okay, yes. Vibration, energy, frequency. Yeah, I mean, if you make a sound, and like touch your throat as you're making the sound, you notice there's a vibration happening. And if you make a sound that's like a little higher, like it's gonna sound a little different. It's a little like higher. It's a different frequency. It's a different vibration. And there's also this idea of oscillation. Anybody know?
Yeah.
Got a definition for oscillation? My orange hat friend.
I know that oscillation is basically manipulating the sound dynamics and effects and EQs.
Yeah. I mean, there's an even simpler sort of definition. It's like a movement back and forth around a center point. So it's sort of like this ebb and flow. So, okay, there's different types of vibration. They create different types of sounds. And different sounds are going to like generate different waveforms here. So we've got the sine wave. It's like this very curvy wave that when you like run your hands on like a wine glass with water in it, it's going to generate this kind of waveform, as opposed to like if you're plucking a guitar or a ukulele, you'll get more of like a square. The sound of my voice, it's going to be more of like a triangle shape. And so you've got also the height of the curve. This is the amplitude. This is going to correspond to the volume. And so the frequency is also like how many times it's like peaking up within a given, a second. And so each note has its own frequency, and I'm sure a lot of you know this stuff. I'm going to get to the video synth stuff very soon. But it's helpful to know some of these things, because if you know like what a sine wave is, and you know what frequency is and amplitude, like those are little things that you can look for in the code and be like, I know what that is. Let's like change the value and see what happens. Okay, so starting with a lot of definitions here, but it's helpful to have like a shared understanding of these things. So synthesis. Anybody got a definition for synthesis?
Manipulate sound.
Maybe it doesn't have to be sound. So you can synthesize ideas. It's basically a combination of ideas. Other synonyms for synthesis would be like union, blend, interweaving, mashup, amalgam. So it's this idea of like blending two disparate things together. I wanted to throw this example in here. A little shout out to Lillian Schwartz. Is anybody fans of Lillian Schwartz, who just passed away very recently? Kind of a computer animation video synth pioneer. But let's take a look at.
So-called mistake in using the computer.
Okay, so that's just a little bit of Lillian Schwartz, and that kind of leads us into the question of what is a video synthesizer. So we talked about synthesis, so now thinking about a video synthesizer. Any definitions out there? Okay, it's essentially a device that electronically creates a video signal. So I'm going to show you momentarily how to send out an audio signal. So let's set that up really quick. And you're gonna see space for a second. So I'm gonna change up the display so that you can see me sending a signal real quick. Okay, now you can see that. You can see I've got this here. Okay, so the way that this is set up, I'm sending audio out of the computer. The audio, since I'm playing sound for all of you, it's kind of a specific setup, and you don't have to set it up this way. There's some flexibility in how you set up, but that said, this is going through this little mixer, so the sound is coming in here, line in, and then we've got the main out, which is going into the little box, which is sending a audio signal here that's processing a video signal. It's sending out a video signal from the HDMI there, and then you've got a power cable there. And then this is sending out of the mixer. The sound is going into the PA here. So that's what you're hearing. So I just have you can kind of see the waveform of this pre-recorded track and see kind of how that's working. Let me switch it back real quick. Super fast. And this is a good time to mention that, okay, so these are video synthesizers, and just a quick sort of warning a little bit. Some of the visual effects produced by these boxes are not the most accessibly friendly. If you're prone to epileptic seizures, if you're prone to motion sensitivity, so listen to your body, take deep breaths if you need to take a step out at any point. And I'll talk about some of the ways that you can dial in the machines to make it a more soothing experience. Because sometimes you can turn a knob and it's strobing out, and we don't want that. So okay, so we kind of talked through a little bit of setup. Here's my little diagram here. Hi. Welcome. And so talked through how this is set up. I drew this 3 times to get I was like, oh no, that cable's not going in there. Okay, so we can see here's my laptop. Here's the little mixer. I'm sending an 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch out. So I've got an 1/8 inch coming out of here. It's going into a 1/4 inch little splitter. So that's going into the mixer. Then the 1/4 inch is going out of the phones to the input of the amp. Sending sound. Wait, that's where I messed up, and I erased that line. So that goes into the EYESY. There's power for the EYESY, sending video to the monitor or a projector. So I could project this instead. Just a little note that the EYESY has a little Raspberry Pi inside of it, so it's got a little computer in there, and there's also a micro SD that holds the OS. I think I covered most of it, but we'll kind of talk a little bit more about it. And here's sort of a close-up of the interface. So you've got it's sort of broken down into different controls. So you've got your visual controls, and so these are going to change the parameters of the local node. So each one, there's like multiple modes within here, and we'll kind of talk about what modes are. But basically, each mode has its own parameters specified within the code. And so these parameters are going to affect the settings defined within that current mode. I just said the same thing in two different ways. So that's like your visual controls in the middle, those knobs. So if you see, okay, it's moving on the x-axis. And what's happening there? Bring it back. So now it's moving on the y-axis. I'm twisting the second knob. And let's see what happens when we do the third knob. It kind of changes color and shape. So it's getting like kind of tiny dots, and it's getting kind of bigger dots, or it's like oscillating between the two. Then here's our fourth knob, so it's changing the color. And it can go to like grayscale. Then if we go this way, it's more sort of gradient-y, and that's just specific to this patch too. And then our last one, let's see, what's it doing? It's sort of changing the shape. Sort of not doing a whole lot. Sorry, I went back to the fourth one without telling you.
So this patch creates this pattern, and each patch is like a different visual pattern?
So, good question. Yeah, it's like a patch if you're thinking in synthesis terms. And there is, if you look at this bottom button, this little eye icon with these arrows, that's how you can switch between different modes. Yeah, sorry, that was intense. So I'm switching between different patterns and modes right now. Okay. So those are like your visual controls, and then you've got your global controls, and these are different because they're going to persist no matter like what mode you've set it to. So an example of this is there is a trigger slash oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the name of it? Trigger slash persist toggle. So right now it's on persist. It's continuously drawing, it's continuously looping. If I switch it to trigger mode, it's going to be more sort of flashy. It's going to be not continuously drawing. It's going to be like sending one signal, erase, sending another signal, erase. So I'm going to do it now. So that's not too intense, but it's just a different, and I'm not exactly sending audio, so we can't totally see. It's just sort of like oscillating on its own. Let's see, let's send a little audio to it just so you can see how that. And then if we hit the persist, it's like drawing on, it's a little more mellow, it's a little more soothing. Yeah, I like the persist toggle. And it's cool to like, you can play this thing like an instrument. So it's like while somebody else is playing a synth or something, you can be like performing and like switching between persist, and it's like, oh, maybe there's a crescendo or something that I'm gonna switch between. Anyway, so I'm gonna keep going. And then, like I said, you're all gonna get to play with these. There's also this toggle on-screen display button, so it's in the top left, right? And then it says, okay, mode S, grid slide square. That's the mode that we're on right now. It also tells us like what the settings for the knobs are. It's on trigger. Is it on trigger? I don't remember what that one's for, but it's telling us like the memory used, it's telling us the network that we're connected to, all this good stuff. So that's your little on-screen display. Okay, so just a couple more little interfacey things. So the shift button is going to be useful for if you want to go in and edit the code, and I'll kind of show that next. And then the persist toggle, we kind of talked about that. So that's in the top right, and it has a little icon between like just one sine wave, and then there's 3 sine waves. Okay, so we kind of already like talked about what modes are. They're just like a method. Well, I don't think I gave like a actual definition, but to your question, Madeline, of like, what's up with the patches? What's up with the modes? Modes are a method for creating visuals, or we could also say like patches in synth terms, and they can be switched together, switched through and blended through together using the interface. So it's also helpful to know. So when I did this, you notice it says mode S, grid slide square. So that means that this is a scope mode. So there's two different like kinds of modes that aren't completely mutually exclusive, but so scope modes are more like a classic oscilloscope, like a tool you use to visualize waveforms. And so they directly visualize the incoming audio signal function, much like a classic oscilloscope. So we have scope modes. Let's see. Let's get out of there. So we'll get to trigger modes in a second. So there's scope modes. And then contrastly, there's what's called trigger modes. So if we went to another one, I don't know what's happening here. Is this a trigger mode? I think it's a scope mode. It is. So all of the modes at the top are going to start with S in the factory mode patches. And then you're going to see a bunch of them that start with T. So those are trigger modes. So these are going to visualize the incoming audio signal, but they don't redraw continuously, just as an oscilloscope would. Of course, if you have the persist toggle on while you're in like a trigger mode, it might sort of do more of like an oscilloscopy type thing. And then I also forgot to mention that you can save scenes and take screenshots. So those are in the last row of buttons, but I kind of don't mess with those a whole lot. So, okay, that's all cool. Are there other like questions so far? Sorry, I'm like, yeah.
So in like an analog video synthesizer,
Mm-hmm.
You're using like the same kind of things that you use to build like a normal television image, but you're manipulating like frequencies and the phase and whatever. So when you're so when you use an audio signal, it's modulating what is already a video signal.
Yeah.
So my question, when you're modulating the image using an external audio input,
Mm-hmm.
is it similar where it's just like, it's like detecting there is an oscillation and it's applying that
Mm-hmm.
as a modulation, or is it like taking apart, like is it like a Fourier, like a spectrum thing, and then it's like using like I'm just wondering like what is the mechanism through which the audio changes what's happening on the screen?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have an easy answer for you, but maybe we might get there.
Okay.
We might get there. Also, we might just have some good questions at the end too that we can dig into. And I'm gonna have a prompt for everyone that I'm about to reveal soon. But yeah, like what exactly how does it compare to a analog video synthesizer? I have not built my own analog video synthesizer, and maybe somebody in this room has that might have some expertise on that. Or do you look like you want to say something?
Well, I'm curious, maybe like a more narrowed in version of that question that I similarly had was like, how are variables assigned exclusively via the code that is being run on the synth, and like that maybe that is the point of using transference correctly, but like almost like translation
Mm-hmm.
that's happening there, that we would like think of as being done through the components, individuated components of a video synth. Like,
yeah.
I guess, and that mostly is for me a question of like how the code interacts with the audio system, and like how almost my soft version of the question that is it is more like how can you code or predict, or is there a level of like making a particular track that in your experience then plays with a particular code to produce a particular aesthetic, or is it more coincidental exploratory?
Yeah, I mean, I was talking with Kate earlier about like how she was experimenting with like more ambient sounds and like different sort of patches, let's get out of the trigger ones. Different kinds of patches different kinds of sounds have like different interactions with the modes.
Yeah.
And when I show you some of the code, it may start to make sense too, seeing like, okay, here's what's happening with the amplitude and the frequency, and there may be some things that you understand that I do not too. So we're building on our shared knowledge here. Okay, so this is an example of like editing images. So some of these in here, let's go back to find a specific patch. Okay, so we've got an image here. And let's keep that on toggle hold. So yeah, it's really cool that you can just open this thing up out of the box and like go ahead and play with it. But I, after a while, was sort of like, okay, I kind of want to like make my own thing. And I'm approaching it kind of like more in a visual sort of way where, I was like dropping in images I had made or photos. And so let's take a look at like if you wanted to do this sort of thing. So I'm going to power this off for a second, and I'm going to change my screen back up to mirror, and then we're going to turn this back on, but hold down shift. So I'm holding down shift and turning it on, and let's want that. And once the EYESY logo pops up, I can stop holding down shift. And so each one of these little boxes, these newer ones, comes with like and I'm not like I don't work for Critter and Guitari or anything. I just use this thing. So they come with these like USB Wi-Fi adapters. So you can set up your own little local network. And so whenever you want to like edit the code, you'll go in and connect to your, what I named LA EYESY. And you can go into your EYESY.local. And, am I on the right Wi-Fi? Yeah, should be. Okay, cool. So if you're like all connected, that's going to initiate the access point to connect to the editor. And then it's pretty easy, I think, to kind of like navigate through here. So we've got like settings, start video, stop video. If I cycle through, you notice it's listing down in the little console there what the patch is. So S, scope, that's a scope mode, aquarium. Then there's S, big city scroll, binary star, interesting. I don't know where they get these names. Breezy feather, LFO, okay. There's crazy clouds. Okay, let's hold on that for, let's make it, I'm trying to make it less crazy. It's just not.
Crazy clouds won't be denied.
Okay, but so we can see circle scope image. I can also stop the video from here, and I could go in and I can click into, okay, home, modes, Python. Here's all of our patches. Here we can see all of the scope modes. It's kind of a lot. And then there's more that you can go find online and download from like GitHub, and you can duplicate these and modify them and like just keep building on that. Yeah.
I came a little late, so you may have already said this, but can you code your own in Python?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So, like, what was the one? Circle scope image or dancing circle image. Let's go to circle scope image. And then we can see inside, okay, here's the Python file. So have I mentioned Python yet? I don't think I have. But that's what this is coded in. Python, anybody use Python extensively? Okay. Can you tell us what's Python all about?
What's it all about? I mean,
What's it all about?
She's gorgeous and can be summed up easily in a few words, but she's a programming language. Let's say that much.
Yeah.
And I feel like her reputation is like, it's like a lot of like words. Like some Python statements look like you're just writing out text, but it's actually like part of the computer program. I don't know. Like, I'm stumped. I don't know.
What have you used it for?
Like so many different things.
Really?
I mean, I teach it in like a university context.
Cool.
But,
Sweet.
It's like really flexible. You can make games with it. You can make animations. You can do. There's a lot of like data analysis you can do with it. It's very popular for that. I use it as like just a really like general, like a big thing. I think a lot of the utility of Python is that like lots of people will make libraries for it. So it's like has so many different functions that you can add on to it, and it's just a very like simple, easy to start. You don't have to like set up all these like extra header files and stuff like you would with other programming languages. And it's powerful. It does a lot.
Yeah.
Can I ask you really quick how it compares to basic like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Bootstrap, like stuff like that?
It's like
Sorry.
Yeah, this is a hard question. It's like similar-ish to JavaScript, like in terms of just like JavaScript is more so for like web-based things, but Python is something that like runs on your computer. Pretty much always you can like do web stuff with Python, but that's like a whole other thing. HTML and CSS, again, it's like those are things that are for like websites and web stuff. I don't want to like explain.
Yeah, I mean, I use the metaphor of like, okay, HTML, if you're building a house, it would be the structure, it'd be the foundation, it'd be the frame. CSS would be like your textiles, your wallpaper, the color of the paint. And then JavaScript is like the functionality, and also Python could be like functionality, like automation to turn on and off the light switches, or to like have a fan running, or if you like a security system, or I don't know, but something like that. So yeah, that's my.
What was the last one? The security system.
That's like. Sorry. Like I don't have a security system. That's why I was kind of like, and I don't know that I need one. But yeah, so like JavaScript or Python, any of these more sort of like action oriented, or Python's also all about like, it's a big word, but automation too. So like it runs on algorithms. So like when you're editing this or making your own code, you're like hacking or making your own algorithms, which is kind of a powerful thing to sort of like think through and be critical of too. Okay, so that takes us back to here. So we've got our image folder in here. We can see, oh, there's a cloud PNG. Maybe that's the image that we saw there. And if we wanted to, we could upload something else. What did I don't have anything. Let's see. No, let's not do Ziggy. Let's do Jazzy Cover. Sorry, it's the first thing that came to mind. Jazzy Cover 2.png. Let's upload that. And we're going to delete the cloud PNG. And let's reload the mode. And sometimes it takes a second. And it's exiting. Let's try to start the video. Starting back up. Can't remember if it's going to go to the specific. Let's try seeing if it reloads. I might have to go back to find it. There it is.
Wow.
Okay. So it just updated the image, and it's maybe too big. I don't know. Yeah. And so, oh, okay. Hello. It's coming closer. Wow. Sorry. See what I'm saying? Like, it can easily just go kind of nuts. Okay, so yeah, we've got our code here. I'm not going to go too far into the nitty gritty, but like you can update images. Some of these are like text based, so you can go in and you could like edit fonts. If you're like, I want it to be a sans serif, not a serif, you could go in and like edit that. You could also look and see like, okay, all the different modes that have image. We've got dancing circle image. Let's try, start video. Let's see. Oh, it's going to reset that whole thing and then go to the beginning. Anyway, we could go through the different like image options and update those. Okay, let me switch back, I think one last time, and then we're in the home stretch. Okay, stop mirroring and go back. Boom. Okay. So, syntax and just thinking about like what it means to program a computer. I don't know. I guess I'm a computer programmer because I've like written programs. And I'm sure a lot of you have probably like written code, and I think if you're like editing code, doing anything with code, if you would like know how to read it, it's so it can be very empowering, and it can also, yeah, just make it sort of easier to understand and do the things that you want to do. So syntax and just thinking about what it means to program a computer is basically to write a set of instructions that the computer is going to follow. So draw a rectangle or a blue rectangle, or like alternate colors between these two circles. And then code relies on a syntax. So the computer requires a specific syntax or language. So the syntax is defined by the programming language that you choose to write your code in. And so we looked at some Python code, and Python, maybe I said this already, it's an open source editor or interpreter. And it's a program, but it can also read and run programs. And so you can download a free copy of Python from python.org. Again, I don't work for Python, but you know, you do you. And you don't necessarily have to have it downloaded to like, you might need the library downloaded to run the EYESY editor. Anyway, that's a separate thing. But the editor, which looks like this, is how we can look into and modify the EYESY in real time. And it also has this console, which was telling us like what mode we were on. And it also tells us when there's like an error in our code, which is very, very helpful sometimes. Okay, we could also write a really basic program in Python just from like the terminal on your Mac, or more directly if you're, you know, using a PC. And you can start writing a simple program like this, just if you have, you know, you got to download Python, and then you can have it run, say, import this turtle library, and then have it go turtle down, turtle forward 100 ahead of where the point is, then it's going to turn right 90 degrees, then it's going to move forward 100, then it's going to turn right 90 degrees. So it's basically just like drawing a series of points and then drawing lines in between those points. And here we can see like a little program where there's some conditional logic and there's some loops. So loops are like a big part of Python too. And these just mean repeating like actions over and over until a particular condition is satisfied. And yeah, all right, I'm not gonna belabor this stuff too much, but these are just sort of like simple Python programs. This is essentially how this stuff works. It's like drawing points, drawing lines, and then repeat, wash, repeat. And this is sort of like a very simple, like drawing with a cursor. You could do a very simple sort of like painting program kind of thing. What else? So we also have variables in Python, which are just like these containers for storing data values. There's a couple of variables here, X and Y. Okay, so I want to bring us to our prompt, which is going to be to play with, make some video collages, some digital paintings, painting with sound, and sharing your results if you would like to. And I've got some other resources that I want to link you to as well. So if you're familiar with P5JS, it's a specific JavaScript library. It's open source, and you can access it on the web through the editor.p5js. And you can do things like make your own little oscilloscope. You can also like access other patches where you modify existing oscilloscopes. And so there's a couple of different links there. And what else? Okay, so I also have this Arena channel. If you want to like upload stuff, add to it, that is there as well. But let's see. Sorry, I wanted to jump ahead a little bit too. So we're gonna have time. It's 7:13 now. I've talked for long enough. Let's open it up just to like questions, playing around. If people want to, play with the different boxes and kind of see what happens, take turns, like look over your neighbor's shoulder as they're like playing with it too. If anybody wants to like tweak any of the code on here, you can as well. But I want to give you lots of time just to like play. And also if you want to like contribute, like upload an image you make or a little video you take, or also like beyond this little workshop, if you want to like play with some of the other links. I was gonna pull up real quick. Oh, you can't see that, but okay, so here's like a little P5 oscilloscope. It's actually relatively, there's some overlap between like JavaScript and Python. So we can see there's actually an oscillator function specifically for P5, which is pretty cool. And so it's like calling the oscillator function. This is drawing the canvas. Function draw, background with the amplitude. It's mapping the amplitude to the mouse X coordinate. So like, and then we've got the Y. All right. So yeah, this is like all accessible. You can duplicate these and like modify your own code or change the color. And then there's one other one I was going to show you before we let loose. So this one, it's like based on where the cursor is. So that's pretty fun. And then you could go in and be like, oh, okay, what do we want to like change here? Like you could change the size of the canvas. You can't really see the canvas so well. Let's change the background from white to like a mid gray. Wait, did that work? Sorry. Why are there quotes around it? There it is. Okay. Anyway, yeah, let's go ahead and like open it up. If folks have more questions, if folks want to start playing, we can freeform chat, hang out, play with the stuff. Yeah. Yeah. What's up?
You can say no to this, but can you show us some of your own work that you've made with this that you feel proud of, or?
That's a good question. What have I done? I mean, I use it sort of like in concert with sounds that I'll make. So like, yeah, I don't know if I have like a good documentation of a recent performance or something. What I've been working on is mainly like editing sort of the images and visuals, and like making my own patches to kind of like use in support of live performance. I can, I don't know, point you to my website if you want to see other related work. I know that wasn't like the question you asked, but
I guess I'm just curious about like how you apply it.
yeah. Okay.
In your own way.
Yeah, so I am part of a couple of different like collectives and bands, and sort of started doing this video synthesis stuff maybe like, I don't know, 6 years ago or something, and started using this thing called vsynth. So I was like also experimenting with like biofeedback and like sending frequencies from plant matter and like translating that into visuals and sound. And yeah, so that's sort of like part of how I have sort of used this similar sort of thing. Oh, I'm not mirroring my screen, sorry. Anyway, feel free if anybody wants to just like jump up and start like playing with knobs, by all means. I know somebody's chomping at the bit. Yeah, just go for it. Okay, mirror. Now you can see what I'm seeing. Okay. This is like using the biofeedback and to generate sounds and images.
When you say biofeedback, like a sensor, like an electric signal, or like a piezo.
Yeah. It's just like a galvanic skin response. So,
Fun.
yeah, it'll like respond to touch. There's another little like device called a MIDI sprout that you can sort of like connect to your plant, and connect to a synth, and then connect it to visuals. But yeah, what else do I have that's like sort
That's
of...
running through vsynth?
That was running through vsynth, yeah, so kind of a different, slightly different thing, but yeah.
I had a question, which was, can you use other programming languages on the synth, or is it just Python?
I think it's just Python.
Okay. And in like in the code that you showed, it looks like it's like basically drawing everything with like Pygame,
Yeah.
which is a particular, like
Yeah.
and like, can you use can you add and import other Python libraries and like use those, or is it limited to just like the kind of stuff that comes on in the box?
I don't know for sure. Like that, yeah, if you could.
Manual recently
studio yesterday, thinking that it's only Python.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I haven't tried to add anything. Yeah.
What could you so you said there's a Raspberry Pi inside, like could you do these things with the Pi and the patches without the interface?
Yeah.
How-
Yeah.
What would that
You would need to get a Raspberry Pi and like know your way around Python, and yeah, and then it's got like the USB adapter interface, but yeah.
it would still need more like an enclosure type thing to like have like
No, not necessarily. No, I mean mainly it's just there to like make it more user friendly, you know, and approachable, and
maybe like relying on the code a bit more if you didn't have that.
oh yes, yeah, for
You wanted
sure.
to mess with that, and then I can pull it down.
Yeah.
Do you have like any favorite examples of people utilizing this in performance that you like research or also like getting started?
Yeah. So let me X out of this. I mean the EYESY Critter Guitari manual. Okay, sorry, I'm honestly not trying to like sell you anything. But discount code. But I think this video is a few years old, so it doesn't have some of the like updated patches, but it does go through a number of like different ones. So I actually learned about this partially through another musician named Shami Sosa. That's his stage name. But Shami was using this for a show that we played together a couple years ago, and he was like creating his own code for it, and yeah, that was sort of like how I kind of heard about it and got into using it. Yeah, what else?
There's a MIDI, there's some sort of MIDI connection
Oh yeah.
on this too.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah.
might that be like another way to bypass using this device entirely to just like use MIDI triggers?
Yeah. I mean, it can recognize like a clock. You could send a clock into it, to a clock signal, or you could send MIDI into it, rather than like going through and like selecting the individual patches. Oh yeah, this was another image I was playing with.
I feel like this one's hard to see what's actually happening with the sound. Maybe I'm gonna try one that's like more obvious.
Oh, yeah, so there's like not much of an audio signal sending there. Let's see. Something with more. Did it? I wonder if it's. Got this stuck. So yeah, that was one of the images. You could like update that image. Yeah, there's also more examples. So there's this guy, Kurt Kaiser, who wrote an okay book about making art with Python, which is some sort of helpful, just to kind of like navigate your way around it.
replace analog video with the ID?
That would be cool. Maybe. I mean,
Oh, it's got analog inputs. Do you know what the bandwidth of the inputs is?
that I don't know. Yeah.
You could probably send it like a black and white analog video. It might do something to it.
Yeah. Is there another question?
Yeah. Also, to your point, if you have an analog video monitor, like you could probably get that VHS aesthetic even if it has a
Yeah.
digital input.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you were to take like a VCR, then you would have your analog signal output. We could be able to process it through that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, just switch the
You can
mode.
run that through whatever, but it's seen.
Oh yeah. Do you want to turn it too so you can actually see? So yeah, that's like the talk persist.
I don't know.
I think I just
Put a hypothetically.
So switching between this button, it'll go between.
It's way outside of
It's
the
gonna go between.
I feel like I'm blocking that.
well within this sort of.
So like persist is gonna continually draw versus trigger mode is just gonna like draw it and then wipe it away. And then each mode, which you can switch through here,
Yeah,
has different parameters that are set to it. So like over.
all of these
It's almost like a rap.
come from like the Python library.
I mean,
It just deploys itself.
They come from the Critter Guitari patch storage, but then there's other like patches that you can get that people like upload, or you can like create or modify your own too.
Like if you write the code in PyGen, you also can manipulate your own.
It's
I think it's only Python.
it's only Python. Yeah.
I wonder how does it change over time on the towards like how is that information taken and turned into those that state
well, depends on the sample rate of like how the Raspberry Pi works and buffers.
easier functions for integrating and differentiating like
For sure, but it doesn't look like it's doing it. What I'm saying is like, it's taking the raw, the raw signal.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
kind of understand it, but just sort of not hardware setup.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. As far as the software, is the setup like you're just typing Ableton through the ICE, or is it complex than that?
Yeah. So right now I'm sending audio out from here, but like you could send audio from a mixer, you could send audio from like a guitar or a synthesizer, and then so you could plug it directly in there. So there's a 1/4 inch input in it, and then there's also HDMI to send out. You can also plug in MIDI directly into it.
Does the ICE have its own software that's kind of like Max that's also interacting with Ableton, or is it?
Yeah, so that was kind of like it's this editor, basically.
Okay, that's what. Like, sorry, that was the part I was kind of lost on.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me. So you basically, it has its own like USB Wi-Fi adapter. So you like log in, connect to the Wi-Fi, like plug it in. You'll see it pop up. So you gotta be in.
yeah, so that's the big
Ready to go.
But the
It's funny
rate,
because I'm like, come here and I'm like, I'm okay with code, I'm not okay with code, and then it's just like, it's not
No, but it'll show up as like LAIZ, and then you could connect to it, and then it's gonna bring up this little editor. So like there you can see the like Python file for this specific mode. If there was like an image, you would see a folder, either a folder for the image or it just hanging out there. Sometimes there's like a font file, and then there's your code, so you could go in. Like what I was doing was just like updating the image file, but if you wanted to sort of like go in and look more specifically at like how it's affecting amplitude or like how long the line length is or how many lines, you could go in and tweak that more specifically.
And then you're kind of snagged where we were with the
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like an instrument all of itself that you can sort of like perform with.
Right, so you don't have to set it up to do the action, you can kind of manipulate the action while.
Yeah. I find it hard to just like, you can't just like let it play while you're playing. Like, you have to sort of like make it and like, play with it to do the things that you want it to do.
Thanks for bringing that.
Still figuring it out all myself too.
Did you find online resources that were like good for tutorials and stuff?
Yeah. So this like arena channel is open, and I made it so people can like add to it if they want to, or like can pull references here. I like found this guy. He was like the only person doing like video synth stuff with the EYESY, and he has this book. I got the book, I read the book. Yeah, it's like from a programmer perspective.
I get you. There's that tech.
But he like broke it down in pretty simple terms, and like I had COVID like in January of this year. I was like, how to do this? I'm not going anywhere, and my brain is just like spinning. But yeah, so these aren't all like specifics, but like there's some of the P5 stuff. This goes through like the different ETC modes.